What is up everyone, my name's Al from Games Europe, and today we're going to be discussing Castlevania The Collection for the Sega Dreamcast. This collection has been compiled by Shindogu, and let me tell you, it brings us the best from all different systems. We've got Beats of Rage games all in one place on one disc. As you can tell, I'm not a vampire. Hey, not that that's important to this, but yes, we're going to be taking a look at these games now, all in one collection by Shindogu. Let's take a look.
The power of Christ compels you!
Maybe I am a vampire.
So this is it. This is, let's call it the Shindogu Castlevania Collection. Like I said, it's bringing all of the best all into one location. This time, all on the Sega Dreamcast. We've never seen a Castlevania collection quite like this, which is great, because you absolutely cannot deny you want all of the Castlevania you can have. Now let's take a first look at the fact that it does include manuals and also credit screens. So it's good to see who's actually involved in the product. Now, as it says, it tells you exactly what to do. Showing tutorial, zooming in and out. Now, so you'll see this mechanic very, very shortly. You might have already seen the preview of what is going to be part of the Cowabunga collection on the Dreamcast. But this is obviously giving the rundown of all the different emulators, the kind of different bits and pieces, the special thanks, etc. Obviously, Ian Michael's pretty much listed everywhere here. But hey, it's Ian Michael, and he's essentially a DC dev god. Anyway, let's get straight into it. Let's take a look at the actual emulations we have here. And there are tons and tons. Now, so you can see a holding image for each of them, all kind of showing different games. They also show some commands, aka home button, start, etc. Anyway, first one, let's take a look at the surprise. Which, yes, that's right, does include quite a mix, including Game Gear games, original NES, and the Master System. Now, see, if you're a fan of Castlevania, you're going to know Master of Darkness, right? For the Sega Master System? I say, yes, this isn't an actual Castlevania game, but it's clearly influenced by, or kind of the competitor to at the time, maybe? Depends what way you really look at it. It actually kind of stands well on its own, though. You know, Master of Darkness, for me, is actually a rock-hard, solid game. I actually think it's harder than Castlevania 1, and I actually think it looks visually better. I actually really like Master of Darkness. I think it's quite an underrated game. Not enough people really talk about it. Now, as you can see, the emulation here, to me, is pretty damn spot on. You know, the controls work absolutely well, bearing in mind, remember, there are technically only 2 action buttons on the Master System joypad, but, you know, don't hinder it from that. This game is not limited. It does feel, like I said, it does feel a bit like a clone of Castlevania, but it does also stand out on its own, and I actually think this emulator's got a really decent amount of options, including the fact that it does have, that's right, this one does actually have save states, which, let's face it, not all of them do. So let's do that. Let's click save, and then it basically says it's saving to VMU, although it doesn't take that long to do it. Anyway, then what we do is we'll click load, and then we'll basically be able to see it load back to the exact place where we were. So save states do work, and they work very, very well. Next up, we are looking at PS1. Now, obviously, you're going to tell straight off the bat, it is going to be using Bleem. Now, obviously, that's the way that the PS1's games basically do work on the Dreamcast. And yes, if you've already seen all of the Bleems that I've covered across the channel, I've obviously covered this one before as well. You know, some of them work great, some of them don't. This one's actually not a bad one. It is a bit stuttery. The music's a bit stuttery, but visually it's actually not bad. It's not missing a whole lot. Things like FMVs, etc. obviously aren't there, but apart from that, it actually doesn't work too bad. Yes, it's a shame. It would have been if this one was kind of a really good one, then it would have been good to see this kind of shine in this collection. It's still there, so if you haven't played it before, you can obviously do that. Next up, we've obviously got the Super Nintendo, which obviously gives you loads of hacks as well. And what I mean by that is ROM hacks, which is great, because that's another thing that not all these collections really remember, is the fact that there are metric ton of ROM hacks out there. Now, so you're probably going to want to play Castlevania 4, etc. You can do that, but as you can see, tons and tons of these different Castlevania versions here. Obviously, yes, the emulation here on this one, as you're about to see, it's not 100%, but it's nearly there. Now, the thing, or not issue I have with this, but the only real bit of slowdown I seem to have, or the real thing I notice, is the slowdown. There is some slowdown with this Snes for all emulator. Now, you've got to remember, these are not the optimized versions that are going to be used in, let's say, the Cowabunga collection. These aren't optimized. These are kind of the versions that were freely out there at the moment. So they aren't 100%, which is a shame. But ultimately, this is a great collection you absolutely cannot deny. But yes, just listen to the sound and you'll know what I mean by slowdown. So unfortunately this one isn't 100%, but it's still quite a nice way to obviously play, Castlevania 4 for example, or even any of the ROM hacks, all in this collection. We don't forget here, this is a big old collection, you absolutely cannot deny. Anyway, now let's take a look at the fact that yes, there are some Beats of Rage titles. Don't get me wrong though, I've covered most of these before, so you can check them all out on my channel. Do search for those. So we're not going to deep dive into those ones. We're actually going to deep dive straight into the NES games. That's right. Obviously it uses Nesta DC, which as you can see a kind of, customized loading screen. There's a few of the different, or actually most of the different Castlevanias here. And as you'll probably already know, again, for some reviews I've done of the Castlevania titles that you can play on the Dreamcast, this plays very, very well. Yes, as you probably already know, the original Nintendo actually emulates very, very well. Nesta DC doesn't seem to have any issues at all. On the console, I actually think it runs really, really well. Maybe not 100%, but I'd say pretty damn close to the original console. The emulation here is really, really good. So any Nintendo games actually run really well on the Dreamcast, but it's great to see all of the original Castlevania titles here as well. What else do we have? Clearly, don't forget, remember you're basically watching a very dominated Sega channel here, so yes, Gens for all emulators used here to check out the Sega Genesis Castlevania games. Castlevania New Generation being played on the Sega Dreamcast. Again, using Gens for All. Now again, this one, it's the audio again. The audio is the one that seems to kind of hinder it. It doesn't feel like it slows down. In fact, some of the audio feels like it's slightly speeded up. So a little bit strange. The gameplay though runs pretty damn well. Again, not optimised, not 100% here, but certainly is. It's an alright emulator running on the Dreamcast. Don't get me wrong, like I said, we've got to keep coming to the fact here that this is just an all-in-one solution for all of the Castlevania titles. Most of the Castlevania titles, obviously there's no PS2 stuff here, or anything higher than that, but apart from that, you've got all of the original ones, you've got the ROM hacks. You know, in a minute you're even going to see the Game Boy stuff, that's right, Game Boy, all working on the Sega Dreamcast. Yes, like I said, I think with a bit of optimization this could be 100%, so that all of them ran absolutely, 100%. But hey, we haven't got that yet, but hey, I'm sure it's coming. But in the meantime, you can bust out some Castlevania on Genesis, Nintendo, MSX. It's all here. And that's what this is all about. So yes, let's check out Game Boy. So again, you'll notice it's basically using what looks like the Nesta screen we've just had, but it's not. And yeah, here it is. This is it. This is the Game Boy emulator running on the Dreamcast. And let me tell you, no issues here at all. In fact, it's quite nice to be able to play some Castlevania games on the Game Boy. I've never played any of them before. That's no joke. Never played any of them before until I got to check out Castlevania Belmont's Revenge Game Boy version working on the Dreamcast. I never thought I'd be able to do this, and now you can. Like I said, this is the glorious thing about this collection. All consoles are here. Which is great, because like I said, not many of us get to check out the Game Boy titles, for example, of Castlevania. Most people haven't until now. To be fair, I don't really have a lot to say about the Game Boy ones because I've never really played them before, but I can tell you, for the 10-15 minutes I kind of had a nice play through the Game Boy titles, they all ran pretty damn well. It does feel like a tiny bit of slowdown, but it's not a huge amount. For me, it was just great to be able to play some Game Boy Castlevania on the Dreamcast. Something a little bit different, but not many people get to see. It runs really well, it's precise, it just uses the D-pad. There's a couple buttons. It's simple, but that's kind of what Castlevania, that's kind of what the Game Boy really was. Simple gaming, and that is what you're getting here. Now on to the arcade. That's right, IMR technology. So this is really old, this one. Haunted Castle, single game arcade here. That's what you're getting here. So again, not optimized, it runs. The sound feels slightly horrendous. I'm not a big fan of the sound. It's not optimized. It's working, which is great, don't get me wrong. But yes, this is by far from being optimized. Yeah, the actual gameplay seems quite smooth. It kind of feels a little bit fluid, to be fair. And whoever thought this was available? I've never played this in my entire life. Whether it's actually officially part of the Castlevania franchise, I'm not even sure, but you can certainly feel it certainly has the feel for it, right? I could be wrong, but it certainly feels very Castlevania either way. And this is another great thing about this collection. I keep shouting about it. It's everything in one. But no means least, we're on to the Amiga Castlevania. Again, another Castlevania I certainly have not played until now. Yes, you've got the virtual keyboard, so that's great, because obviously a lot of games like these Amiga games, for example, on consoles, same with Amstrad, all of them. They kind of require that virtual keyboard unless they've really been optimized to the point where it's just a couple buttons. But I gotta say, possibly the worst Castlevania game you'll ever play. And this is, I'm not talking about the emulator here. The emulator seems alright. The actual sound's alright. Again, the controls actually work quite well. But my god, this is the worst Castlevania I think I've ever played. You're probably saying, well, why is it the worst one? Well, because it is. I mean, the controls are damn terrible in the fact that it's not that they're not responsive, it just feels wrong. It feels literally like a rip-off of Castlevania. Yes, the music again is trying to be like Castlevania. It sounds like it, but it's just not right, and I just hate it. So really, what do I think of this collection as a whole?
Okay, so clearly I'm back. Okay, so somehow miraculously I am back. And yes, that's right. As you can see, a clearly awesome collection for the Sega Dreamcast. There's a few little bits and pieces that, could be optimised over time. But as you can see, a really decent collection nonetheless. Let me know what you guys think. As always, like, comment and subscribe. It's Al signing out.